Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. Hey friends, welcome back to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. You're listening to episode 103, and today's episode is Beating Imposter Syndrome with my friend Katie Holbrook. Katie's amazing, and she is actually a part of my Harmony membership, and that is how we've connected. She was actually a founding member, and in this episode, we're not just going to talk about imposter syndrome, but also all about finding your people online, leaning into communities as a music teacher. This conversation's so good, and we discuss all the things that you will need to help you gain forward momentum. If you're battling any of the things we talk about today, I always say that if one music teacher is dealing with something or has a question, it means someone else does too. Katie shares some great ideas and strategies, and I know you're going to walk away from this conversation feeling refreshed and ready to go into next school year feeling a bit better. Katie isn't a veteran teacher, but she's a second generation teacher, so it's definitely in her blood. She's active online in the teacher community and is an advocate for equitable music education. You can connect with Katie at 130 Music, that's 130music.com. And you can also find her on Instagram at 130 Music, and that's all spelled out with words. The 130 Music is, and then on Teacher Pay Teacher at 130 Music as well. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Hey, music teacher friend, I hope you're doing well. I want to tell you about something super exciting coming up this summer. On June 22nd, I will be hosting the free 5-day challenge called Start the School Year Off Right Challenge. In this challenge, you're going to learn all about how to start the school year off with success, whether that is going to be virtually or in person, or you're just not even sure what next school year is going to look like yet. On day 2, we're going to talk about work-home life balance, which is something we all need help and support in right now, especially during the time we're living in, I feel. Day 3 is going to be all about how to plan for next school year during the summer. And we'll talk about what your school year will look like and how you can plan to successfully teach next school year, even if it looks a little different than you think it might normally look. Day 4 is going to be all about reflecting on this school year. And oh my goodness, do we have a lot of reflecting to do, right? You had the beginning of the school year started off strong. You were in your classroom, and then you finished off probably the school year teaching virtually. So we're going to reflect on all that together and talk about ways you can move forward with taking what you learned into the next school year. And day 5 is going to be all about why professional development matters, why it's a good thing, how to find good professional development opportunities this summer, and how to find what you need for your particular teaching situation. So I would love for you to join us. The challenge starts on June 22nd, and simply head to subscribepage.com/music teacher challenge 2020, or simply click on the link in the show notes to join us. I cannot wait to see you there. And immediately after joining the challenge, you can join our Facebook group where I will be going live every day in the challenge. And there's so many amazing music teachers in there already a part of the group who are ready to support you and get to know you. So come on in and join us. I can't wait to help you get the forward momentum you need to go into next school year feeling successful. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you soon. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to be joined by my friend Katie, and I've been wanting to have her on the podcast for a while now, and we are going to have so many good conversations today. Before we dive in, I want to let her just introduce herself to you a little bit more than you already heard in the intro, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about herself and her reasons that she loves teaching music to kids. So welcome to the podcast, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm a second year teacher, but I've always kind of felt like teaching in some capacity was in my blood. My mom is an elementary teacher. Right now she does reading and math intervention, but she's done everything under the sun with elementary. And so I've always known that teaching was going to go some route. And then in high school, I had, all of my life in high school was choir and different activities with that. So I think when I got to my senior year of high school, it just kind of fell in my lap. Like, okay, I'll just go to music education. I didn't really have that aha moment of what exactly I was going to do. So what I like about teaching music for elementary school is I think that we really lay the groundwork with, what these kids are going to do with their music career, whether that's professionally or just at home when they're older. But I like that music really allows us to teach the music content, but it also we can teach for like compassion and social skills and emotional responsibility. And I think that has so much more value than any test or workbook you could find. You can always have data collection, but are they emotionally responsible for themselves and how they treat other people? And music is such a great environment to teach those skills in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I've always said too, music is one of the only classrooms where kids kind of come in on an equal playing field, meaning it doesn't matter what reading level you're at or, what behavior you've had in another class. Kids just come in and they can all learn music on an equal playing field and they can all participate.
Exactly.
Have you seen that where there's maybe some kids that are struggling in math or reading and they come in your classroom and then they're just kind of excelling because they feel like they're confident enough to do that?
Yeah, I specifically, that reminds me of like one of my third grade classes. I have kids that they really struggle with some of their academic content, but if they find something that they're successful, and they're not always successful every day in my room, but when they do find that, you can just see it all over their face that they're excited and they feel motivated to kind of really dig their heels in when they find something that they're really good at.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. So we're going to talk about a few things today. And the first thing I want to talk about is imposter syndrome, which is a biggie, I know, for a lot of music teachers or teachers in general just facing this. Actually, I would just say people face imposter syndrome about all kinds of different things. But when it comes to music teachers, just talk a little bit about your experience with imposter syndrome, maybe what caused these feelings for you and maybe how you've moved past it, or just anything you have about that.
Yeah, so first, to kind of explain what imposter syndrome is, if people listening are kind of confused on those words or that language, is I found this really great graphic that explains it, and I'll post it to my Instagram. But there's a graphic that shows what people think of in a situation like that and how it really is. So what we assume is that what your knowledge is a circle about the size of a quarter, and that everybody else's knowledge is the size of a dinner plate, and your circle fully exists inside of that bigger circle. So everything you know is already like claimed by other people. But the reality of the situation is that everybody has an equal size circle and they do overlap a lot, but there may be a little corner of your circle that has something that maybe people haven't thought of, or it's something that people have already talked about, but you have it in a different light or in a different language that's easier to understand for some people. So I think that knowing that everybody's circle is the same size and it's going to overlap, that's the first step of moving past imposter syndrome. Something that I also have been thinking a lot about is that collaboration is really the mindset to have when going into a conversation with another teacher. Especially when you go into a conversation with somebody that's either more experienced than you, or they have their own way of doing things, that if you approach that person with, let's collaborate on this issue rather than you have your opinion and I have my opinion and one of us is right, that you're going to have a much more easier time trying to solve these problems or find some kind of solution to, especially going into all this online learning that we have right now, that if everybody comes to the table ready to contribute as well as listen, instead of here's what I'm doing and not listening to everybody else, that's where the problem is. And that goes back to what we teach our kids too, is you have to listen just as much as you speak.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's when I, in my head, for me personally, think all these people think these things about me, or this is what they'll think about me if I say this or do this or act this way. And probably nobody's even thinking, I mean, maybe not everyone, but majority of the people are not thinking the things that I think they are. And the
Hmm.
same thing in the classroom when it comes to your students. You think, oh, they're going to not think I have a good enough singing voice, or they're going to walk in and hate everything I do, and you're just not confident in what you're doing. Maybe you're just not comfortable yet, but a lot of times it is just in your head. But I also loved what you said about collaboration because it's so true. I mean, think about like in-person workshops. How many have you been to and some things really resonate with you and you're like, oh, I can totally use that and do that in my classroom. And some things you're like, well, it was good, but I can't really see my kids doing that. But you didn't like leave mad or think I'm better than them, I know more than them, or my classrooms run better than theirs. You just know it's just a different teaching style. And so I like what you said about that collaboration, especially right now. If you're listening to this, we're having this conversation during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have seen a lot of that. I've seen some good collaboration, and I've been in some, even free groups where there's just people like just wanting to be right sometimes, I guess. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know what that is. But yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
know
some
what you
people
mean.
have that. It's almost like an ego thing where they
Hmm.
say, oh, well, I'm going to show up. And I think especially there's two kind of camps right now with people that are teachers, but also business people. They have their own business. Like I've seen a lot of people step up and either offer their resources for free or say, what do you need me to create right now that you might not know how to make, but what's your problem that I
Hmm.
can provide for you in this time? And I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, well, this is how you have to do it for online learning to be successful. And I've, a lot of those people are probably losing some trust
Yeah.
and some faith in their customers and the people that really looked up to them. But
Yeah.
I've seen more of the collaboration and the helpful, which is really good that teachers are still shining their true light in
Yeah.
a time of need.
Yeah, for sure. With imposter syndrome too, I feel like it is trying to keep up or be the same as everyone else and feel like you think you're doing a good job until almost like, well, we'll use the in-person workshop example again, but you go into that or into a training and you hear about all these things these teachers are doing with their students, or they're talking about all these resources they have or the way they've taught and their classroom management style is just perfect. And then you might walk in feeling confident, but the minute you hear someone talking those things, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I'm not doing as good a job as I am. And then you kind of
Right.
sink. Maybe you don't go back into the school you're feeling as confident because of that. Have you ever experienced that? Or maybe not like it's happened to you, but have you maybe have had it in your circle of friends or teaching, people you teach near? Has that happened before where you've experienced someone having imposter syndrome because of something like that, or something someone has said to them maybe?
Yeah, I think that like in the district that I'm in, we joke that it's kind of this like hierarchy and like it's a royal family because we have a teacher that's taught he's towards the end of his career or as far as teaching with before retirement,
Mm-hmm.
and we joke that like he was the co-op teacher for like this generation of teachers and then they've been the co-op teacher for my generation of teachers, and so
Mm-hmm.
we kind of joke that it all trickles down. But I think that a lot of times people see him as the end all be all
Right.
of what our district should do. And I've voiced that I love what he does, but you don't have to do it exactly the same as long as everybody is walking out of our school district with the same level and caliber of musical knowledge.
Yeah.
That everybody can do that in whatever way they can best convey that information to those students. And that, yes, what he does is great and it works really well in his school environment, but that might not work on the other side of town. And I think that
Yeah.
that's just something that everybody has to really keep in mind.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, what works with a certain group of students or at a certain school, it's not going to work, like even down the street. It's just
Mhm.
not. And it is up to also to the personality of the teacher, your musical background, your training you've had. And so I think those mentor teachers or those teachers that have been teaching for years are so important because they're obviously knowledgeable what they've been through like decades of teaching. But it's so true. I've always felt like kind of like the black sheep. Even when I was in the classroom, I felt like I felt like I would watch some of these music teachers, like you said, just kind of like all go this direction and do the same thing. And I'd be over here like kind of by myself, or maybe it's one or two others, like not on purpose. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
rebellion thing, like, oh, well, I'm not going to do it because they are. It was kind of like, yes, I see your point, but I'm going to do that and twist it and make it my own way. And I think that's because I knew my kids, I knew what they needed. I knew that I just didn't want it to be so cookie cutter. And plus that gets boring. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
If you're doing it the same way as everyone else. But yeah, I
Yeah,
love
I
what you're
kind of
saying
feel
about,
like
yeah.
when I started teaching that I upset several apple carts saying like, well, it doesn't have to be the way we've always done it. We can change with the times. We don't have to use
Right.
all of these workbooks. We don't have to use this set thing. That there's plenty of stuff out there and we can use all of it at the same time, and people can use what they're comfortable with, and we can all be successful. It doesn't have to be so regimented, you know?
Right. Oh, completely. Well, part of beating imposter syndrome is also finding your people, using air quotes, and leaning into communities. And so let's talk a little bit about that. I feel like, I mean, obviously the day and age we live in is so awesome because there is, I mean, right now we're recording a podcast episode over Zoom. There's Facebook groups, there's Instagram. I know the Instagram community is strong. There's membership sites, there's podcast episodes. I already said that. Blog posts, webs, whatever, you know what I mean. Social media, I'll just leave it a blanket. But there's also in person. Collaborating with even music teachers in your district, workshops you meet at, I know you've already taken ORF level 1 and Kadai, you know, there's so many awesome ways to connect and form a sense of community with others. So do you feel like that has been a big part of helping you beat imposter syndrome, just finding some community and support systems to lean into?
Absolutely. I think that when you're looking for your, I kind of call them tribes, but your, people, tribes, any of those terms, that you should find a group where you're the one informing and you're helping other people. And you should also find groups where you're the one being informed. So you're always sharing and teaching, and you're also always learning. I kind of categorized my tribes when I was looking into this as into 3 groups. I have my school district as kind of my in-person, they're down the street, across town, we can put stuff in the mail and I get it the next day and I don't even have to interact with them, face to face, and we're still really helping. And I try to lean on the older teachers, like I said, but also making sure that the people that are new to the county, even though I'm a second year teacher, that I'm saying, hey, what do you need? What do you have questions on? Like, this festival's coming up. What can I do to help you? What resources are you looking for? And then the second one was my ORF family. I would have no idea that I would absolutely love a group of strangers in 2 weeks like I did. I kind of going into it was really skeptical of, okay, well, how is this going to go? I don't know anybody. I'm 7 hours away from home. I, drove all the way up there by myself. So I got there and I was really cranky and we were staying in the dorms. And, but, then flash forward 2 weeks later and it's like the most emotional departure I've ever had from a group of people. And so that was kind of a hybrid group of like, we were in person for 2 weeks, but even almost a year later, we're still staying in touch. We had a Zoom call like last week and we just kind of caught up and tried to see how everybody was handling all of this chaos, it feels like. And we even got to celebrate somebody's engagement that just happened recently. And so they really feel like a family. And even though I'm one of the outsiders, because they're all from North Carolina, and I was from Georgia, there was one from Tennessee, but just like over the state line, and then one from Arkansas. And it's just really good to keep up with them and hopefully see each other again, maybe doing level 2 this summer. We'll see how that all pans out. But that's a really good like hybrid of in person and online. And then the online communities that I've found, I have this rule of thumb of like good vibes only, like if it's too much drama or they're just really negative all the time, you don't have to say like, oh, I'm out and make a big scene about it. You just click unfollow or, get out of there as quietly as you can. But if it's not serving you and what you need, whether that's, teacher memes and it's making you laugh after a long day at work, or it's a group of people that you're actively learning from, then there's not a big need to follow that person or be in that group.
Yeah.
And then another important rule for me with online communities is finding an active group that is constantly seeking to ask questions and to help each other. And Harmony is, to me, the most valuable resource I have at my hands, because there's constant conversation, and like there's monthly recognition for, oh, not just like, oh, you're a good music teacher, but oh, you're being a good helper, or you're being very inquisitive. And I really like that about Harmony, is that it really motivates me to help other people. It's not just what can I get out of this, but what can I contribute to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So Harmony she's referring to is my membership site that began. Katie's actually one of the founding members. I started it in June. Was it June of 2019? Wow, I
think
can't
that's
even
when we
remember.
kind of started playing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Like it's been a long day already, guys. But yeah, and honestly, so I was kind of like you. I just knew there were music teachers out there needing more. I am always supportive of everything. And I mean, I don't mean everything ever, but in Facebook groups, there's so many awesome free communities. I'm in those. I have connected with so many on Instagram. There's so many amazing things out there, but I wanted something where I could provide monthly support. I do have a Facebook group, but it's just for members. So everybody in there is committed and they know we're members of this. We're going through the same content. We've had the same conversations every month. Everybody can't make it every month to everything, but that's okay. It's like you're getting what you need and it meets you where you're at. And so that's what she's referring to. And I agree with all that. I am a big believer on there should be multiple modes of community. It should be connecting even with the teacher down the hallway, even if they're not a music teacher, connecting with them. Like you said, in-person workshops and trainings, or if level one, I had a blast at my training when I met all kinds of different music teachers. And then the community in Harmony, I've never seen anything but supportive music teachers in there, and it's been amazing. And so I want to ask you, when you decided to join Harmony, when you got that email and it was saying, hey, I haven't even built this thing out yet, but this is my vision, what made you decide to join whenever that offer came along? Like, it's this is a one-time thing. I just need some founding members to help me build the thing. What made you decide to join that, like to just trust the process?
I think, honestly, a lot of it had to do with the promise of lesson plans kind of already laid out that were, you could edit them how you wanted to and kind of sub in your own stuff. But going into my second year of teaching and feeling like the first year of teaching, I just very much flew by the seat of my pants, knowing that there was going to be some structure and like, okay, I know that in October, I'm going to be teaching this and I'm going to be using these materials. Now, 2 months ahead of time, I can look for things that supplement that, but I don't have to have off the top of my head a baseline. I think that's what really made me just, I didn't really haven't followed you for that long, but knowing that like just seeing your commitment to that process and that project, I could see that it was an investment for you. And so that made me decide to, invest in it, invest in you, and trust in you that and it's been honestly the best resource, like I said, that I've come across in my 2 years of teaching.
I appreciate that. I did not pay Katie to say that, I promise. But yeah, I honestly, and it's blown me away. I just knew kind of in my head the vision I had, and it was even hard to like explain to others, when you can, I mean, even as a teacher, like, and hear what you see, and just like, and so what I did is, I just had like I had 13 founding members, and I had a phone call with each of you individually, and just took pages of notes. And that's exactly what I built. I mean, down to every single tiny detail. Even one member said she wanted, and so some of you probably like in the lesson plan box were like, why is this in here? It's because somebody said they needed it. But even down to like music vocabulary, needing, like when you see the objectives telling you to teach different things, and you're like, what does that mean? Well, somebody who doesn't have a music education degree that came in just from like a private teaching background, and they're looking at saying do an ostinato, they don't necessarily know what that means. And so I even included that. but yeah, it was just, my heart was there just to build this for music teachers to meet you where you're at. And I just love having you in there because you are like a huge support system. And what I've loved, you've probably seen this happening lately too, is just, I feel like the support, especially right now during this time, it's picked up. But just every once in a while, someone's like, hey, I created this new resource, just shares it without even,
Right.
skipping a beat. Or we did a whole conversation around assessment, and someone shared like 6 different assessments she uses in her classroom. I didn't ask her to do that. Just showing up and sharing and constantly. I never wanted it to be about me. I wanted it to be about y'all. So I appreciate that so much. But Katie, I've loved this interview. Do you have anything else to say about community or imposter syndrome that we missed before we go?
The one thing I was going to add in for just general advice is that, especially in this time with the COVID-19 pandemic, that the most important thing you can do for your students right now is to stay connected and to show up for them. And that's going to look different from different people. I know a lot of people are really just kind of bummed out because their district doesn't have the means to connect virtually with their students, and they're having to send out paper packets. Like my district, only middle and high school are one-to-one right now, and we have goals to be all one-to-one, but we're not. And so we're just kind of having to make it work how it is. And luckily we are able to connect with some of our students, but whether that's, posting on your school's Facebook page, like a sing-along, just like get out your ukulele or whatever you have at home and just be familiar, like a familiar face for them to see, and things that they recognize from your classroom, that's really important for them to have that sense of normalcy in such a crazy time that we were kind of really just thrown into. Like we knew about it, but I feel like it was just in a matter of hours where we went from complete normalcy to a whole different way of living. And you can also, pick up the phone. There's Google Voice is an app that I've decided to use, and you can it generates a phone number for you. So it's connected to your phone, but it's not your personal phone number. And I've used that to stay in touch with my after school chorus kids. Like I just text their parents and say, hey, just checking in on so-and-so. And I've seen that makes a really big difference for them. They're like, oh yeah, they're doing great. They're outside riding their bikes. Thanks for checking in. Because I think when we do return to physical spaces and teaching in person, that these bonds that we maintain throughout this unsure and unfamiliar time, that's going to support and help strengthen the in-person learning when we return. So like, don't focus on, oh my gosh, they don't know what an ostinato is, or they're not going to know all of their scales. Like just focus on that human to human contact, and those relationships are going to be what's still there when we return.
I completely agree. And honestly, when you were talking, it got me thinking about imposter syndrome again, because this is kind of going off conversation, but it kind of doesn't actually. Thinking about when you said some teachers don't have a way to provide digital learning and some do, I have seen some teachers that don't have, or let's say this, their students don't have a way. If you live in a district, or if you work at a school that's like a Title I school, and a lot of the kiddos don't have a means to have a computer at home or internet, then you're like, well, I can't do any of this stuff you guys are telling me to do, or I can't support them in that way. And so they start feeling like, how am I supposed to do that? And then the imposter syndrome sets in. And so I love that you said that. Just try to show up. I mean, you can just be creative with it. I mean, even like, I guess it goes back to social media, but I was going to say most schools have a Facebook page, and just post a picture of you holding a sign, or snail mail. I mean, just sending kids letters in the mail. Like, when's the last time a kid got a letter to themselves in the mail? So I think there are creative ways to get around that. But just, would you agree that just right now, just showing up the way you know how? And nobody knows the right answer. Nobody knows the right way to do it. Nobody, like you said, it was just kind of being thrown in there and being like, go. And you're like, I don't know.
Exactly.
And everybody, I feel like, is trying to. One thing, I'm not laughing because of the situation, but I'm laughing because it's when you see a bunch of teachers trying to stay professional, because that's you're told to stay professional, but then you're like, oh, 1/3, so you're just pretending like you know how to do it, but inside you're like freaking out because you're like, oh my God, but I got to be professional on the outside, but inside you're like, I don't know how to do any of this. So it's just one foot in front of the other, right? Like you do when you're a new teacher. I mean, you just, right? So you've been doing.
You just have to figure it out. And I think that like what I walked away with, and that was the most important to me my first year of teaching, was the relationships I had with those kids. And then this year it's been, building on those and building new relationships with the kids that have come in from other schools. But like, that's the constant every day. Like when I get there, I know I'm going to see this kid in the hallway when I walk in because he rides an early bus, and I'm going to see this kid on the way to lunch. And like that routine can still exist in a different manner if, once a week, or, you go through, as a music teacher, we teach, I teach about 550 kids. Like that's a lot of people to send snail mail to. But
totally.
Well, and like what I've been doing is I emailed all of our teachers at my school and I said, hey, if you're going to do a Zoom call with your class, send me the ID for the meeting and I'll just pop in and say, hey, just because like it's kind of selfish, but I really want to see their faces. And
well, of course,
like, I just want to like pop in and let them know that I wanted to check in on them. Because I think that for some of our kids, that can be really scary because for some of them, they have the most important people to them are the people at school, the people that really take care of them. So I think it's really important to still show up in whatever way you can. Again, that might not be popping in on the Zoom call. That might be, sending a postcard or whatever that is. Like to me, I'm going to send all of my 5th graders a note just because we had that kind of ripped away from us.
Yeah.
And like, we're still going to be okay from that and they can still come back and visit later down the road. But I think giving them something tangible to kind of have some closure for the year is going to be really important in the long run.
Oh, completely. And, we had a whole conversation about community, and the thing is like, you can have community with your students too. And when you were saying, like, when you see them in person again, you want to just pick up where you left off, and you totally will, because you're showing up right now. You also said earlier, like, show up for other teachers the way you want them to show up for you, and you're doing that with your kids. I feel like that can go, be the professional in your classroom, of course, be the teacher, be the leader, but show up for your students the way you want them to show up for you as well. They're seeing right now who's showing up for them. They're seeing not all of them. They can't, the ones we talked about that don't have access to technology, but they're seeing the teachers that are being in there and reaching out and trying to help and figuring out what to do. And they're seeing that, and it's meaning a lot more to them than I think people even realize. Kids are smart. They're aware. So, and they miss you. Yeah. Well, Katie, I have appreciated this conversation so much, and I definitely want you to let everybody know where they can connect with you on social media or wherever else that you would like to connect with other teachers.
Yeah, so the easiest way to get in contact with me is through Instagram. I'm at 130 music, all spelled out in letters, no numbers. And then if you want to have a longer conversation or looking for something in particular, my email is Katie, Katie 130 with numbers, music @gmail.com. And then I am, with all of this extra time we suddenly have, I am starting to really focus on my website, which is 130 numbers, music.com. So it's kind of bare bones right now, but hopefully with all of this time spent at home that I can kind of get that up and running and have some more general music topics and lessons, ideas, in long form. So those are the 3 easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Well, awesome. You guys make sure to connect with her. Katie's awesome. And she is seriously, and I'm not just saying this, one of the music teachers I've met that is just showing up and supporting anyone she can. And she really is. You just have a heart of gold, and it's been so fun getting to know you this year. So I appreciate you being a guest. I've loved having you on the podcast, and I'll see you soon. So
yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.